Pulsar Studio.
Video games are the youngest artistic medium, and since their emergence, they have developed mechanics that are known worldwide, even for their bad reputation and rejection. This is Checkpoint, and today we're going to discover an example of it. Since the beginning of the industry, the design and development of mechanics has been the cornerstone of the creation of experiences and the most important challenge that creatives face: how to represent complete and deep experiences through simple actions. Although in this medium it's possible to tell stories and express art, being an interactive medium, an exaggerated focus is often placed on the need for constant participation by the players. No matter how well the experience is set or represented, or how deep and well told the story is, it is always a challenge for developers to think of ways to keep players' attention and interest as they move from one point to another or progress the story. The desire to tell stories has led to the use of resources and tools inspired in other media, such as the use of cinematics. This tool has been overused since its introduction was possible because it allows telling specific pieces of story and creating a more controlled impact. For many creators, video games must be largely interactive medium, and therefore players must have some kind of action or participation even in narrative moments such as cinematics. The most famous form that began to be used to generate that interactivity are the quick time events. This is one of the simplest mechanics that consists of pressing a button or a command at the exact moment that it is indicated to the player, basing its operation on the quick reaction in a specific window of time. But the origin of QuickTime events was not given by the introduction of these as interactive resources in cinematics or as a simple mechanic for slow and passive moments in a game. Since the origins of the industry, there has been a type of experience with little action and with a lot of narrative weight, such as graphic adventures. Although many adventure games of this style only require the player to experience the story and choose between different options to take a path and move forward, some decided to increase the interactive part a bit and implemented a mechanic similar to a QuickTime event as a way to achieve this. The best known and perhaps pioneering example of this is Dragon's Lair, an arcade game developed by Cinematronics and released in 1983. Different types of games and experiences began to include this type of mechanics in their repertoire, for example, being very common in Final Fantasy and Resident Evil games, and serving as a base mechanic for novel experiences such as in the Dance Dance Revolution series, who uses this resource in a combination with music and dance in very ingenious and effective way. But in 1999, a game for Sega Dreamcast called Shenmue, which despite being action and adventure used many cinematics to tell its story, gave a new level to the use of this resource in combination, even naming the term by its director, who justifies its use as a way to create an experience that blends playing a game and watching a movie. Since Shenmue, many games have fallen into the use of this resource with the same intention, to introduce interaction in cinematic moments, but often failing to design the use of this resource with a more important purpose that coincides with the vision of the experience that it wants to recreate, feeding the negative reputation of this mechanic to the point of being almost taboo in the industry. Most of the criticism to the use of this tool accuse that it generates a break in the rhythm and flow of the experience and of the immersion. This happens because most of the cinematics that include this mechanic do it expecting the player to react in time to an indication on the screen and repeating this sequence multiple times, but in case of failure, the player must repeat the cinematic or sequence until she memorizes the sequence of indications or just be able to react in time. Reacting in time or memorizing a sequence is not usually the mechanic aligned with the vision of the experience, and its mastery and success have nothing to do with the rest of what has been learned and developed up to that point in the game. Cinematics are usually moments designed with the flow and pace of the action and storytelling in mind. The curve of intensity that all games have in one way or another goes through different cycles with moments of greater interaction that, when overcome, give way to moments of calm and reward, where one more piece of story is revealed. The player is mentally willing to breathe and relax to receive and enjoy that reward, but instead of receiving this, he is surprised with a sudden task that he was not ready or willing to do. Or even, the player may not be interested in watching the cinematic because he already knows the story very well, and introducing QuickTime events prevents him from skipping that moment. Chasing sequences are usually longer forms of QuickTime events, where in addition to reacting with indicated button, the player must move the character fleeing from an imminent death, which in essence has the same effect and result as a conventional QuickTime event. But QuickTime events and chase sequences shouldn't be dismissed entirely as resources for gameplay and experience design. Being tools, they have an utility and function, and it is the job of designers to find the right place and use. The most important thing to consider when using these resources is that they must be designed based on the mechanics and base experience of the game, and identifying if they are compatible and whether their use will contribute something that cannot be achieved in a more effective way. If the game does not have reflex and quick reaction mechanics, implementing this resource will only create a dissonance with the other mechanics used that are aligned with the vision. Although having a failstate is part of the challenge sought to create in any experience, it is incorrect to think that having a game over is the only way to generate that challenge. Combining a QuickTime event or chase sequence with a game over failstate that forces the player to restart long sections of game, or full cutscenes that cannot be skipped, will undoubtedly generate frustration. The tension and suspense that is sought using these resources is broken the moment the player fails and must start over. The illusion of belief and immersion is broken, and it is impossible to get back into the skin of the character who is reacting or running for his life. A moment of suspense or tension effective during any period of time can only be achieved by keeping the player with the illusion that there really is a danger. When restarting, this sense of danger disappears to give way to frustration. However, it is possible to achieve effective sequences in which it is difficult for the player to fail and die, but that in the same way generate the feeling of danger and tension without interrupting and breaking the illusion, supported on the sound design and environmental storytelling. It is also important to avoid mixing moments of calm and relaxation with forced interaction. This means not using this resource in cutscenes and letting the cinematics itself generate the effect. If the cinematic is well constructed and accomplished, it will put the player in the necessary state of mind to make her feel whatever is aimed for and convey any message. QuickTime events and chase sequences have a greater potential to cause the desired effect if used within the moments of greatest action and intensity. Many games make use of this resource as a combat mechanic, and its effect is very satisfying. In a combat experience with challenging and intense battles, using a QuickTime event as a resource to finish an enemy or as a last resort to save oneself and not die can create a climax that could not be achieved otherwise, making the player feel the intensity and suspense that it is so much sought to create. It also helps to disguise QuickTime events and chase sequences in a way that does not make them seem what they are, and to avoid carrying the negative stigma that these resources have due to their misuse in other experiences. Many games make use of this in some way. For example, the parry mechanic in Dark Souls or similar games is a form of QuickTime event designed within the combat system and with the sense and purpose that coexist with the vision of the game. QuickTime events and chase sequences are nothing more than design assets in the repertoire of tools at the disposal of experienced creators. Like any other tool, they do not have a positive or negative characteristic by themselves. They only have uses and functions, and it is the task of designers to ensure that their use confabulates with other resources and contributes to the experience sought within the vision. Being like this, its effect on the player can always be positive. And you? What do you think of QuickTime events? What examples of its use have shown you its value? Leave it in the comments below. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of Checkpoint. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share this to keep discovering the art in making and designing video games. See you next time!